Hello, and welcome to Learn. My name is Silvija, and my guest today is Pär Stigenberg, the CTO of Swedish technology company owned by Schibsted called Blocket. Welcome, Pär.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Very good talking to you. And you are the first person in this series that we are doing together with Oslo Met University for the course on leadership, technology, and innovation that is not Norwegian. And so we're doing this in English. That's a change, but also it'll be really interesting to hear your international perspectives on technology as taught in Norway. I will very briefly say a couple of words about the series and then a couple of words to the students, and then we'll get into our conversation, okay?
Sounds great.
So this conversation, as I mentioned, is a sort of a mini lecture, a part of a series that we in Learn are doing together with Oslo Met and Digital Norway. And the idea is to create a series of lectures, a sort of an anthology that discuss the topic of the course that Oslo Met is delivering to students, that is focusing on technology, strategy, leadership, and innovation. And the students will be exposed to real-world stories from Norway, or in this case, Sweden, from Telenor and from Schibsted, and try to understand what happened, would they make the same choice, and how do we measure success in these very strategic operations and manipulations that these two big corporations are experiencing now. So with our conversation, I would very much like the students to have 3 questions in their mind as they're listening to our discussions. It will be a very informal talk. It will be more like you giving a lecture and me keep asking questions. But the first thing that I'd like them to think about is basically one of the most important strategic decisions that Schibsted has made in their journey to digital. And it is the purchase of Blocket. At this time, they already had Finn. It was a really good platform and growing platform for digital ads. Still, they went to Sweden. They tried buying Blocket, and they came home thinking it's too expensive and went back and did it after all. And it was a monumental decision in the way that they later organized their international growth that gave them the sort of success they have today. And I would like us to try to understand a little bit of that dynamics and why was it a good decision in the end. The second question I'd like you to help us understand is maybe, is there anything specific about Norwegian technology strategy workings that is worth noting, maybe from a little bit more international perspective? I understand you have a long-standing relationship with Norwegian companies, so you might not be very objective, but let's try. And then the third question is, how do you experience the Corona crisis, both as an opportunity and as a game changer in your space? Okay?
Sounds terrific. I'll try. And thanks for doing it in English. My Norwegian is not always the best.
No, we could do it with you in Swedish and me in Norwegian, but it ends up being sort of a Muppet Show conversation, is my experience. So, yeah. So let's try English. But my first question is always to ask the guest to say a few words about who they are and why they love what they do.
Good question. Who am I? As you said, I'm the CTO of Blocket. That means I'm leading our technology department. I am 45 years old, and my background is from engineering. So I was a software engineer for a long time, but for the last 15 years, I've been leading organizations or teams in the IT sector. Outside work, I am passionate about football. I'm a coach.
I can see that on your door.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a coach for a football team for immigrants here in Sweden. And I also play tennis. I love to go out in my boat and do some fishing. And I like to do home improvement together with my wife here in our house. And things like that. So
which brings you to your basement, where you're talking from now.
Yes, exactly. Short
Very
about
good.
me.
Yeah. By education, you're a techie?
Yeah, I was studying computer science. I also been trying out chemistry, but computers was more my thing, I think.
You are more digital than chemical.
Exactly. I actually hated to be in the lab when we did chemistry. I liked the theoretical part, but not when it comes to doing elaborations and stuff like that.
Smelly.
Yeah, and it takes forever.
Lots of heating and shaking.
And then nothing happened, and you start all over again.
Yeah. Okay, that's perhaps more close to real life than all this digital stuff. That's so binary. But Pat, say a few words about Blocket. How did it start, and where is it now?
Blocket started, I think, in '96 as a small company in the southern of Sweden, and then, as you said, Blocket was bought by Schibsted. I think this was after the IT crisis. And as you also said, Schibsted tried to buy Blocket, but I think they felt that it was too expensive. So instead, they tried to roll out Finn in Sweden under a brand called Finn.no and try to compete with Blocket. But that didn't really work out, so they went back and did another try to buy Blocket. So 1 or 2 years after the first try, they came back, and then Blocket was twice as expensive as last time. And this was a long time before I joined Schibsted and Blocket. But I actually think that the general thoughts about this was that Schibsted paid too much for Blocket when they bought it. And I think the price was close to 200 million Swedish crowns.
Which sounds like a terribly large sum. But then if you look at their current listing of Adevinta on the Oslo Stock Exchange that fetched billions, then basically what they say, we wasted millions, but we made billions. And I think that's a really interesting part of this strategy. Nobody could guarantee that Blocket will be this incredible vehicle for international growth, but it turned out to work. And you have no guarantees, and you can try to calculate your business models and future revenue as much as you want, but it depends on why it works, why the customers accept it. How do you basically hit the moment and manage to gain people's attention? And something about Blocket worked internationally. Why?
That's a good question. I mean, Blocket was a super strong brand in Sweden, and I know that Schibsted, when they were thinking about expanding globally, they made a decision between using the Finn platform or the Blocket platform, and they actually used both. So in Austria, for example, Schibsted started out with the Finn platform, but in most countries they use the Blocket platform. And this was before I started, so I'm not 100% sure. But I think that back then, the Blocket platform was maybe easier to get started with. It was smaller and more quick to set up. So you could, with quite little effort, try out different markets. So they sent out engineers with all the software on a CD, and then they started out a lot of different marketplaces all over the world, in South America, in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, and so on. So it was really a lot of different tries, and not all of them were successful, but some of them were, and some of them were extremely successful. Like if you look at Le Bon Coin in France, for example.
And we can try to talk a little bit more about why Le Bon Coin worked. Was it a rollout? Was it that you could collaborate with other kinds of media in a way that nobody else had tried? But before we go there, I'd like to ask you also a very quick question about where did you work before you worked for Blocket?
Then I worked on a quite big web agency called Corona, which is a Norwegian company as well. So I worked there and led the Swedish office for 4 years, but I started out as an engineer. So I worked there for 11 years before I joined Blocket. And it was not intentional to go to another Norwegian company. It was just an accident.
It's funny how these accidents keep running our lives. So, okay. So if we take one case, for example, not Blocket in Sweden, because I guess home market is always different from others, but Le Bon Coin, which is the biggest classified in France?
Yes, by far.
And they decided to run on Blocket platform. Why was it suitable?
As I said, I think this is my guess, but I think set up the Blocket platform and to test if we have something that works was really fast. So with quite little effort, you could get something running, and you can test if the idea and the product is working. And I think a part of the strategy when they selected countries, I think we looked at if there was a really strong competitor, and they selected countries without the Blocket, if you understand, without a competitor that was exactly. So that's at least how I perceive the strategy.
I think that I don't know enough, but I imagine that the way that Finn was constructed, the whole platform, it's a long series of constructions based on the traditional way that some of our biggest newspapers already did their classifieds. So it was built on legacy business processes. The relations were there, and you built a digital platform around existing things that all of these newspapers had and were able to combine. Well, I think that Blocket was possibly built in a more independent fashion, which made it much more easy to roll out in new places.
Yes, I totally agree. This is actually a quite funny story, because maybe not funny is maybe not the right word, but in 2005, Blocket was hacked, and then they decided to rebuild everything. So then they started from scratch, and it was that platform that was rolled out. So it was a modern platform back then.
Cool. So what do you think about Blocket going forward? What are the things? What are the sort of strategic things that you guys are grappling with now?
Right now, I think we need to provide our customers with more helpful services, with more things than just putting an ad on Blocket. I think we can do a lot more when it comes to shipping, when it comes to payment between users, and things like that. So becoming more of a real e-commerce site, I think, could be something that is important for us on Blocket.
So for the starting point was just showing ads, but now what you're trying to do is this end-to-end, connecting the user or the seller with the buyer and the whole experience.
Exactly. I think that is super important going forward. And we've seen that during the Corona crisis as well, that features like shipping has become even more important, because it could be scary to meet up and do the pick up the thing that you want to buy and things like that. So then features like shipping becomes super important.
People don't really want to have to go to a post office and deliver big items there. There needs to be some sort of integrated partnership here that solves the issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and I also want to hear a little bit about your team. How many people do you have, let's say, on techie side of Blocket, and do you find them in Sweden, or do you go international, or how do you build your organization?
Yes, Blocket, we are almost 90 engineers working right now, and in total, I think Blocket is somewhere around 250. So that's our size. It's super hard to find engineers in Stockholm. Stockholm has quite big startup scene and a lot of different IT companies competing about engineers. So that is super hard. But I think Blocket is a really, how do you say, popular place to work. So it works. We can still find talented engineers. But a couple of years ago, we decided not only to bring in people from Sweden. So we have changed our company language to English. So right now we have quite a lot of engineers coming from other countries as well. So that's a big shift for us. Other things that I would like to mention when it comes to our organization is that we have been working super hard to get a better gender balance on Blocket. When I started, it was really that it wasn't that many women in the tech department. So we have tried to make a big change here, and we have almost doubled right now. So this is something super important for us as well. So yeah.
Does it help that you have a big brand? Because I noticed that for Finn, it's really a huge talent pool.
Yeah. Being a big brand, of course, helps, and I also think that being a brand with a strong purpose, like we have when it comes to sustainability, for example, helps a lot when we do recruitment.
Okay, and what's happening now with the Corona?
Well, it's been like 7 very interesting months, I would say. 11th of March, we decided to go home. And it was, of course, a huge shift. But, I mean, I am so impressed about everyone working on Blocket because it worked from day one. We of course had to change a lot how we worked, and we had to bring in new tools and new way of working, but everything worked from day one. And I think that's super impressive. And I mean, we have been changing how we work. We are, instead of meeting up at the coffee machine and share information there, we have tried to find a lot of different ways to do the same. Because I think it's super easy to only see and talk to the people that you work closest with. And then you lose perspective, and you maybe lose input from other parts of the organization. So one thing that we have been working hard with is to find ways in a digital way to share information and knowledge across functions and across different teams.
Do you see big strategic opportunities in this Corona crisis? I'm thinking maybe people are doing more e-commerce than they did before, and
yes, of course. I mean, the things I mentioned before has become even more important, to have a good shipping solution, to have a good payment solution, to have a good communication platform, so that users can maybe look at the thing that they want to buy before they meet up. So I mean, there are a lot of things that we have changed in our product that comes from the crisis we're in, for sure.
Cool. And Pär, what do you think about Swedish versus Norwegian management style, or do you notice I work on some Norwegian boards, I work on some Swedish boards. I think it'd be interesting for our students in terms of leadership to see if there are any big cultural differences that you can notice.
Between Sweden and Norway, and as I said, I've been working in Norwegian companies for 15 years. I don't think there is a big difference between Norway and Sweden, actually. When I talk to my peers on Finn, for example, I don't see a big cultural difference. Maybe more when you talk to people in Europe, when you talk to the CTO of leboncoin or Subito in Italy, for example. But between Norway and Sweden, I'm not sure. Do you have any examples yourself?
I find the Swedish people a bit more formalistic and a bit more hierarchical. Norwegians are basically completely obsessive about no hierarchy, equality. Everybody gets to have a say, and everybody is actually challenged to bring their own opinion to the table.
Interesting. I don't think that Swedes see it that way, because I think we see ourselves as really non-hierarchical.
Hierarchical.
Thanks. Yeah. Difficult word. But I've heard that before. Not sure I see it myself. I hope I'm not.
But then maybe you're working in this more, what shall I say, maybe the tech people are more alike across the two countries, and the finance people are maybe a little bit more different. I don't know.
Maybe. It could be. And I think maybe the tech people are maybe more alike globally as well, because we hang out in the same forums, even globally.
Wear the same hoodies and
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. If you are to give Schibsted some strategic advice, I know it's a question out of the blue, but so basically our students are trying to understand how do companies create this technical strategy. And I don't just mean for their technology, I mean strategy based on technology. What do you think are the big opportunities for a corporation like Schibsted, and what do you think is Blocket's role in that?
That is a good question, and not an easy question. What I would like Schibsted to do. I think we have opportunities to work closer together in the Nordics. I mean, we have super strong brand in Norway and in Sweden and in Finland, and hopefully soon in Denmark as well. So I mean, we have fantastic opportunities to collaborate between our different countries, and I think that is something that is important for us going forward. We can try stuff out in Norway and then roll it out in Sweden. We can do the other way around, or we can find opportunities that goes across from day one. So I think collaboration between the countries is something that is super important.
Cool. But my last 3 questions are always trying to kind of figure out a little bit more about you as a person.
Wow.
Actually, I'll do 4. Okay. So my first one is, do you have a person who inspires you?
That is a good question. I get inspired by a lot of people. I think it's super hard to mention one. The people that inspires me are normally passionate people, and passionate people, I mean, they can be passionate about anything. It can be that they have a passion for engineering or architecture or cooking or fishing or whatever. People that are passionate always comes with, or not always, but often come with a lot of knowledge, and they come with a lot of energy. and the energy is contagious in a good way. So I would rather not drop one name here. Passionate people in general.
Yeah. What do you think are the most interesting dilemmas that we are facing now in terms of this new development of the world based on technology?
I think one hard dilemma is that we've been working home for 7 months. We've been maybe stuck in your house or your apartment. I think it was easier when it was warm outside and the sun was shining. I think now in the Nordics we're entering dark times. So I think making sure that we all feel well and focus on our well-being, I think is one super crucial thing going forward. And I think that we are working from home can be something that comes with opportunities as well. I mean, usually in the winter in Stockholm, it's dark when you go to work. It's dark when you go home. I guess it's the same in Oslo. But now it's easier to go out and maybe do a walk and talk during the lunch or see the sun. So I think even if the pandemic is not something that we of course want, but our new way of working comes with opportunities if you look for them. And I think that is super important. Other interesting things that will be discussed now is what happens when we get back. How is the new normal after the pandemic? Will we go back to the office? Will we continue to work distributed? Will it be some kind of flexibility in the middle? So I think that is something that is also super important and interesting to work with.
I think there are lots of changes to the way we work, and I really hope that we don't insist on going back to the way things work, but take the value, the social value of being in the office at full opportunity, and actually spend time together with your colleagues, and then you use alone time or screen time for all the routine works that you need to do, or all the hard thinking work that you need to do alone.
Yeah, I agree.
I was wondering, if you have something that you have read or seen in the last few months that you would really recommend, something that affected you?
My favorite reading or my favorite books, when it comes to engineering, I would always recommend Inspired. I think is a fantastic book when it comes to how to do product development. I of course clean code. If you're an engineer, that's mandatory, I would say. And other books that have inspired me is Domain-Driven Design by Eric Evans. But my advice would be to read a lot of different things and look at different things on YouTube, for example, and try to get many different perspectives. Because if you are focusing too much on one small area, then you can maybe get like a narrow
mind.
Exactly. So try many different things, read many different books, try different programming languages, and you will get new perspective on the problems that you are going to solve.
And the last question, Pär, what's your strategy or tactics for coping with hard times? We all go through shit creek sometimes. What do you tell yourself to keep going?
I like hard times. I think that gets my adrenaline flowing a bit. But my advice would be to try to not be a person that sees the glass as half empty, more half full,
Mm.
and really make an effort to find opportunities in the problem or in the situation you're in. But then it depends. I mean, in the pandemic, I can't change it. I can't do anything about the pandemic, but I can find opportunities within it, for our product or for our way of working or for myself.
I think that goes back to your original answer, which I loved. I like hard times. And I think it has to do with basically hard times always bring big opportunity with them.
Yes, yeah, it does. And we see new things that we need to change in our product and things like that. And I also like when we have incidents on Blocket, for example, if something breaks, if we have a big bug or if some infrastructure breaks, I actually like that. Because then you get your blood flowing and you see all the responsibility that people is showing and the collaboration to make everything work again. So if it's not too often, I think it's something that I actually like.
Pär Stigenberg, the CTO of Blocket, thank you so much for having been here with us in Learn and inspired us to think about looking for opportunity both in hard times but also in early times, because the way that Blocket has been positioned for the international growth of a major corporation in Europe is really an adventure.
Yeah, very much. And thank you for letting me be a part of this. Super fun.
Thanks.